Okay, so this is the explanation for how I made my Apple Catcher game in GameMaker Studio. Everything in GameMaker that's on the screen for your player is kept in rooms that are in this room folder. The default room is called Room 1, and that's this room that's open right here. Inside of it are all the main objects for the game, so the apple, the bowl that catches the apple, and the hearts. What you can't see is the text over here that's going to display the score, but that'll display when you hit play. Inside of the objects folder is all of the objects that are in your game, and in the sprites folder are where you put your sprites that get assigned to the objects. So over in the workspace, this is where you edit all of your objects and your sprites. So if I wanted to change the sprite for this apple, it's as simple as swapping it to one of my either sprite options in the sprites folder. Everything for the code wise of GameMaker is in events. So in the create event for the apple, you put all the variables that you're going to need, which in this case is just the y speed of the apple and its gravity, as well as a few global variables for score and life and such. And then there's a event called step, and this happens every single frame, very similar to the draw function in P5.js. So in here, we have y speed equals gravity and y plus equals y speed. So the y value, any green variables in GameMaker are already a thing in the object. They don't have to be assigned. And so I'm setting the y of the apple. I'm adding y speed to it every frame. And so the apple falls down. And then here it checks if it's greater than the height of the screen and takes off a life and puts it back to the top. And then if your lives are zero, game over. When game over happens, it changes your room to game over, which is this room here, which has your restart as well as the game over text. There's also an event, a collide event, which checks if the apple collides with the bowl, in which case it resets the apple back to the top of the screen, makes the gravity of the apple a little bit stronger so it goes faster every time you catch one to make the game harder, and it also adds one to score. For the restart button, all it is it doesn't need a create, it just needs step, and inside of the step function that happens every frame, it checks if the mouse is overlapping it, and then if it is, it checks if the mouse button is pressed, and then if so, it resets game over to false, sets your room back to 1, and gives you 3 lives again, effectively restarting the game. The hearts are also pretty simple. It just, each heart, even though it's the same object over here, there's 3 different ones here, and they've all got a unique object ID, and so I figured out what each ID was, and it checks for each one how many lives you have and disables if it's visible if you lose a life. And then the text over here, this just is an object that is given a font and something to say using draw text. So it displays the score with the global.score variable. Also, any variables in GameMaker, such as gravity or y speed or like any of those, any of the purple ones, they only exist in that object. So if I tried to call y speed in a different object, say the heart object, then it wouldn't know what I was talking about unless I also assigned it there. That's why there's these global variables which do the exact same thing as regular variables, but they can be accessed by any object in the scene, in the room. So now if I run my game, you can see as the apples fall, you catch them with the bowl follows the mouse, and your score goes up for every one you catch, and the speed of the apple increases every time you catch an apple. If you miss an apple, you lose a heart, and once all of your hearts are gone, you'll get the game over screen with the option to restart.